huge Great Pyramids in Antarctica. They jut out of the ice and snow, and they look perfect, just like those in Egypt.
A dark pyramid, a giant mirror in the sky, and an extinct animal buried in ice for thousands of years. Alaska is hiding a reality so terrifying that scientists are struggling to explain it. Joe Rogan just blew the lid off a find that connects ancient legends to alien technology. If it isn't human, then who built the structures beneath the snow? To understand why there's so much with a frozen wasteland, we have to look deeper into the Alaskan wilderness, the gateway to a lost world. If you have ever spent time listening to Joe Rogan, you'd know he is obsessed with the idea that humanity has a forgotten past. On many occasions, he talked about the Younger Dryas impact theory, which is the scientific idea that a massive comet hit the Earth about 12,800 years ago. While many researchers look toward the pyramids of Egypt or the depths of the ocean for proof of that theory, the most shocking evidence might be sitting right in Alaska. Alaska is a place that most people think they know, but it remains one of the most mysterious spots on Earth. The state alone covers over 660,000 square miles. To put that in perspective, you could fit Texas, California, and Montana inside its borders and still have plenty of room left over. Most of this land is completely unexplored, and because so much of it is untouched, it is the perfect place for long-buried secrets to stay hidden. Recently, something strange has been happening near Denali, the highest peak in North America. To find out what it was, geologists used advanced ground-penetrating radar to zero in on what they call the Denali anomalies. These aren't just odd rock formations, but structures buried deep beneath the mountain that don't look natural at all. These readings from the radar are so strange that they defy standard geological laws. While these structures stay hidden in the dark, the Alaskan landscape is changing rapidly, especially now with the permafrost melting at an incredible rate. As the ice turns to mud, it is revealing artifacts and remains that have been locked away for thousands of years. The issue for mainstream science is that these discoveries are popping up in places they should not be. For decades, the typical story everyone was taught was that humans first came to the Americas by walking across a strip of land from Siberia around 13,000 years ago. But the new discovery in the Alaskan muck proves that the timeline is wrong. You might wonder why you are only hearing about this now, but there are a lot of truths that have been kept hidden in the world of academia for centuries. As sensitive as it is, it might mean admitting the history books are wrong. Not only that, but there are also rumors of government officials stepping in to seal off certain areas where these subterranean structures are found. Over the course of this video, we'll be peeling back the layers of the Arctic and exploring hidden pyramids, underground energy grids, and even the strange disappearance of people in the Alaska Triangle.
Where planes disappear mid-flight, and where an underground pyramid may hold the key to it all.
This is a journey to uncover a history that was never supposed to be found. But before we get into that, we have to look up, because 12,000 years ago, something fell from the sky, and it changed Alaska forever. The Dark Pyramid of Alaska. In 1992, China conducted a subterranean nuclear test that sent powerful shock waves through the Earth's crust. Scientists monitoring the seismic data in the United States noticed those waves from China had traveled through the Alaskan wilderness between Nome and Fairbanks. But what they didn't expect was that it would hit a specific region called the Alaska Triangle and bounce back. Now, this place was nothing like you've ever imagined. There are stories of planes vanishing without a trace and GPS signals failing abruptly.
Because this place is real. It's called the Alaska Triangle, and it might just be the most dangerous place on Earth.
Nothing about this place has ever seemed right. The data obtained from the 1992 test showed this region had underground structures with a perfect geometric shape that looked like a pyramid. The initial reports indicated the structure is massive, almost twice the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza. If these readings are correct, it would be the largest pyramid ever discovered on Earth. In 2012, Doug Muchler, a retired U.S. Army officer, eventually came forward with shocking claims that the military had been aware of this site for a long time. According to his account, the region had been guarded heavily by the military, despite it being incredibly remote and hard to reach. People who have tried to explore the region report seeing no-fly zones and specialized underground bases designed to monitor the site. This level of secrecy is intense because the pyramid not only seems to be just piles of stone, but it might actually be active. Researchers who have been lucky enough to study the data from the radar seem to think that the pyramid has a vortex that emits a self-sustaining electromagnetic pulse, which could be the cause of GPS signals failing. Some conspiracy theorists believe that this pyramid was in no way built by any human, but aliens. Discussion about the Black Pyramid has led to heated debate among experts. While skeptics argue that the structure is a natural geological formation that happens to look like a pyramid, many geologists find it difficult to explain the mathematical precision of the angles found in the scans. If this is ancient technology, it would mean that the knowledge and level of engineering centuries ago was more advanced than what it is today. If a pyramid exists beneath the ice, it begs the question of who built it. The answer might lie in the DNA of a species that should not have even existed. The mummified giants of the North. Long before explorers arrived in Alaska, the indigenous people of the North told stories about a race they called the Ancient Ones. From the stories told by ancient people, the giants stood around 10 feet tall and possessed incredible strength. For years, these were just tales and myths, yet the physical evidence tells a much different story. During the 1930s, gold rush miners used high-pressure water hoses to blast away layers of permafrost to reach the buried gold. As the frozen mud melted, it revealed more than just precious metals. Miners reported finding megaskeletons that were perfectly preserved by the cold for millions of years. Some of these remains included skulls so large they could easily fit over the head of an average man. They didn't look like bones from large animals. They were clearly bones from humans. Much of this evidence met a strange fate when these miners sent their findings to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. for study. Once the crates of bones arrived, the remains suddenly vanished. There were never public records of these skeletons in modern museum displays, which led to accusations of a massive cover-up. But with more and more breakthroughs in science, there seems to be a flicker of light at the end of the tunnel. Fragments of frozen tissue and bone have also been recovered from remote sites in Alaska. And when scientists ran DNA tests on these samples, they found something shocking. The ancestry of these individuals was classified as unknown because their genetic markers did not match the groups of people who migrated across the Bering Land Bridge. These giants were described as red-haired people, which matched similar discoveries found in the caves of Nevada and across the South Pacific. Excavations near these burial sites have uncovered tools made from complex metal alloys, which is proof that these ancient people had lived in the Bronze Age. Even with all these proofs, the story of the giants was short-lived. Many of the mummified remains show that these people died in a single catastrophic moment, since they were found huddled together or frozen in mid-motion. This fits perfectly with the idea of a global cataclysm that ended the Ice Age and wiped out their civilization. It wasn't only giants that were preserved in the ice. Something else with a pulse had a strange glow behind the ice. This discovery leads us directly to the Brooks Range, which is a massive and jagged mountain chain in northern Alaska that remains frozen almost year-round. Deep within these remote mountain passes, explorers have stumbled upon a series of tunnels that aren't like the typical caves. From the interior of the tunnels, they looked so advanced, with no sign of chisel marks or evidence of hand tools being used to build them. Instead, the rock surfaces are glassy, almost as if they were carved through the solid granite under intense heat. To get this kind of interior in one of the most hostile environments on Earth seems impossible. This is exactly the kind of mystery Joe Rogan discusses with his guests when they talk about the possibility of hidden underground civilizations. While the thought of a secret world underground might sound like something out of a movie, the physical data coming out of Alaska is becoming hard to ignore. Satellite sensors have recently detected massive thermal anomalies deep beneath the Brooks Range. In regions where the surface temperature stays at 40 degrees below zero, there are pockets of intense heat located 2,000 feet underground. This heat is not coming from volcanic activity. What is even more fascinating is the data from new LiDAR technology. By using lasers to see through the rock and ice, researchers have mapped out a city-sized grid of structures and intersecting paths buried deep in the earth. The images show an organized structural planning that stretches for miles. People who manage to get close to the few known entrances of these tunnels report that they hear a low-frequency hum that vibrates through the ground. This sound has caught the attention of some powerful organizations in ways they'd not like to admit. Despite these locations being miles away from the nearest paved road, witnesses have spotted convoys of black SUVs and unmarked helicopters patrolling the wilderness. If these were just empty caves, there would be no reason for such high-level security or the presence of private contractors in a roadless wasteland. The activity proves that whatever is down there is still operational, raising questions about the inhabitants of those places. It wouldn't be the first time strange sightings like this have happened in Alaska. In a different case, a group of researchers came across an energy source that defied modern physics. The Arctic Blue Energy Grid. Following the trail of that mysterious humming noise or those strange pulses found in the mountains would eventually lead to a spot called Gakona. This is the home of HAARP, also known as the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
The High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program facility in Gakona, Alaska,
which most people know as the massive field of silver antennas standing in the middle of the Alaskan wilderness. For years, the official story has been that this facility is strictly for studying the upper atmosphere. They say it is all about radio waves and improving communications. However, the sheer scale of the project suggests there is something much deeper happening under the surface. The scientists and researchers at this site fire high-frequency beams directly into a part of the atmosphere called the ionosphere, following a process known as ionospheric heating. What this does is that it basically boils a section of the sky to create a giant mirror made of plasma. While this has plenty of military uses, many independent researchers believe the government is using HAARP to tap into the natural power nodes of the planet. There is also a long-standing theory that Alaska is not just a piece of land, but a major junction box for what people call ley lines. These lines are invisible paths of electromagnetic energy that wrap around the Earth almost like a power grid. A terrifying glimpse at how this energy works was seen during the Great Alaskan Earthquake of 1964, which was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in North America. When scientists went in to check the damage, they found something they did not expect. The seismic data showed that the mountains were not just solid rock, but hidden resonant chambers deep within the mountains. These were hollow, perfectly shaped pockets that seemed to amplify the vibrations of the Earth. Some experts think these chambers were part of a prehistoric grid designed to harvest energy from the planet itself. This ties back to the mystery of the Black Pyramid. If that massive structure is actually an ancient power plant, it might be using something called zero-point energy. This is the concept of pulling an endless supply of power from the empty space around us. While it might sound unbelievable, the electromagnetic spikes recorded in the Alaska Triangle say otherwise. These energy bursts act like a beacon for foreign creatures that do not belong on Earth. This would explain why Alaska is one of the biggest UFO hotspots on Earth. Pilots and military personnel frequently report seeing UAPs hovering directly over these specific energy nodes without making a sound. Joe Rogan has talked about this with several experts on his podcast. He is usually pretty skeptical about secret government weather machines, but he admits that the data on these electromagnetic spikes is hard to ignore. Looking back at the numbers from sensors in the Alaskan bush, the readings are way higher than they should be. Something is generating a massive amount of power without any obvious fuel source. And this energy seems to be altering the very physiology of the creatures that live nearby. Alaska isn't just a really cold state. In most cases, it sort of does the work of a freezer, preserving the permafrost, which is a layer of soil that has remained frozen for tens of thousands of years. But that wasn't all that had been frozen. In 2013, researchers found a female woolly mammoth buried in ice. When they broke into the ice surrounding her, blood actually flowed out of her body. Even after thousands of years, her muscle tissue was still red. Finding biological material this fresh is almost unheard of. It gave researchers the high-quality DNA they needed to start talking about de-extinction as a reality. This discovery brought about the restoration project called Pleistocene Park, where scientists want to bring these animals back to the tundra. They believe that reintroducing mammoths will help restore the ancient grasslands and slow down climate change. The plan involves splicing mammoth DNA into the cells of modern Asian elephants to create a hybrid species. While it might seem like a worthy cause, it, however, raises massive ethical questions. Joe Rogan is one person who has voiced concerns about this project. He wonders if Earth, as it is prepared for the consequences of bringing back extinct giants. If they ever successfully revive a mammoth, what could this mean for the entire ecosystem? And that's not the only concern. With the permafrost defrosting, it releases old forms of viruses and bacteria called zombie pathogens that have been dormant for millions of years. With years of evolution, it's hard to tell how the current immune system would fight off a virus that has been out of circulation for 50,000 years. It is a gamble that could have global consequences. Researchers are also finding species in the ice that do not appear in any fossil records. These are mystery animals that seem to have appeared and disappeared without leaving a trace in our history books. The biological discoveries are only the beginning. The ice is hiding more than animals. It may as well be hiding the remains of a civilization that possessed a forbidden map. The Peary Race Map and the Green Alaska. Back in 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Peary Race compiled a world map showing various coastlines in incredible detail.
In 1513, an Ottoman admiral named Peary Race compiled a world map on gazelleskin.
Yet this was a major problem for mainstream history. The map showed land masses as they appeared without any ice, but mainstream science allows us to know that those specific areas have been buried under glaciers for at least 6,000 years. This implies that someone was sailing the oceans and mapping the globe long before the first known civilizations ever appeared. If these maps are accurate, it means the planet looked very different centuries ago, and there's proof of this transformation as we dig into the Alaskan soil. Beneath the layers of permafrost, researchers have uncovered fossilized remains of palm trees and tropical ferns. These plants cannot survive in the cold, yet they are scattered throughout the Arctic Circle. This is clear evidence that Alaska was once a temperate paradise. This was not a slow change that took over millions of years. Instead, it seemed to have happened in an incredibly short amount of time. This brings us to a theory supported by the researcher Charles Hapgood and even Albert Einstein called crustal displacement. The concept hints that the outer shell of the planet has the possibility to change its position. If anything had moved the crust too quickly, the forest in the temperate zone could be pushed into the Arctic in a matter of hours. This would explain why the mammoths found frozen still had undigested food in their stomachs. Because everyone sees Alaska as a frozen wasteland, there haven't really been a chance to look for hidden and ancient cities there. Most archaeologists focus on the Middle East or Central America. However, if Alaska was once a warm and fertile land, it is highly likely that people lived there in large numbers. We might just be looking for the ruins of an advanced society in the wrong place. Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock have spent a lot of time discussing this possibility. They argue that a global maritime civilization existed before the last ice age ended. These ancient civilizations had to be master navigators who understood everything about the Earth long before modern tools were invented. When the cataclysm hit, they, alongside the vast knowledge they had, was buried in ice and snow. The crustal displacement theory changes everything that has to do with the ancient times. As far as we know, the ancient people were far more capable than we give them credit for. They were not primitive wanderers, but builders and explorers who saw the world as it truly was. But if they were so advanced, where did they go? Some people think that they never really left. Rather, they unfortunately found themselves in a place of no return. The Alaska Triangle. The Alaska Triangle covers a massive area of land between Anchorage, Juneau, and the northern peaks of the Brooks Range. While the Bermuda Triangle is more known, statistics show that Alaska is far more dangerous. Since 1988, over 16,000 people have disappeared within this zone. It means 4 out of every 1,000 residents had vanished in this death zone, which would mean there's a higher chance of disappearing here than anywhere else on the planet. Many of these cases are written off as people getting lost in the harsh wilderness, but the number of disappearances hints at a darker pattern. One of the most famous incidents happened in 1972, when a plane carrying 2 United States congressmen, Hale Boggs and Nick Begich, vanished into thin air. The government launched the largest search and rescue operation in American history. Dozens of planes and ships spent weeks scouring the mountains and the sea for any sign of wreckage, but they never found a single piece of evidence. It was as if the aircraft never existed. This is quite a sad reality for anyone who ever vanishes in the Triangle. No search team on Earth with the most advanced high-tech equipment can be able to trace anyone or anything taken by it. Experts believe this area might be what they call a vile vortex. This is a location where the magnetic pull of the Earth is incredibly unstable. Pilots report that their compasses start spinning wildly, and their altitude gauges stop working without warning as they approach the death zone. Some even talk about encountering electronic fog, which is a strange cloud that seems to cling to the wings of a plane. They have also claimed that after flying through this fog, they find themselves hundreds of miles away from where they should be in a matter of seconds. It is a terrifying experience that defies the laws of time and space in the North. The only people who could have an inkling of an explanation of what happens in the Triangle are the Tlingit people. Their legends tell of a creature called the Kushtaka, who is a shapeshifter that takes the form of a land otter or a human in distress. The legend further explains that the Kushtaka mimics the cries of a lost child to lure people deep into the woods or toward the freezing water. Once the victim is caught, they are never seen again. Whether you believe in ancient monsters or magnetic portals, the connection to the subterranean pyramid we talked about earlier is hard to ignore. Only a powerful source buried underground could create exactly this kind of magnetic chaos. Looking at the map, the disappearances seem to cluster around the same spots where those strange energy readings are strongest. The uncertainty of the Alaska Triangle remains unsolved to this day. But that's not the only mystery lurking in Alaska. There have been strange sightings of something that should not even exist. The Alaskan Yeti. A small fishing village in Alaska called Port Chatham used to be a bustling fishing community until the inhabitants of the village abandoned their homes because of a creature called the Hairy Man.
The mystery of Bigfoot, also known as Sasquatch, and in Alaska simply known as the Hairy Man.
According to local stories, this monster was responsible for a series of deaths and disappearances of people. The villagers were so afraid that by the 1950s, the town was completely abandoned. Today, it is still a ghost town that has been taken over by the forest. In recent times, hunters and researchers have tried to find the truth behind these stories for years. They have collected hair samples and footprints that are unusually large for any known animal. When scientists use modern DNA sequencing on these samples, the results often come back as inconclusive. One popular theory is that these creatures are descendants of Gigantopithecus. This was a prehistoric ape that stood 10 feet tall and lived in Asia thousands of years ago. It is possible a small population crossed the land bridge and survived in the deep Alaskan wilderness. Joe Rogan has mentioned that if Bigfoot were real, Alaska would be the most likely place for it to hide. The state is cold and mostly empty, which gives animals like large primates plenty of room to live and hide without being seen. Some researchers believe these creatures use low-frequency noise that can cause a feeling of dread or temporary paralysis in humans to stay hidden. This would explain why experienced hunters sometimes freeze up when they feel they are being watched. There are also reports from national park rangers who claim they were ordered to ignore strange predatory kills that did not match the work of bears or wolves. Recently, drone footage using thermal imaging has captured massive heat signatures in valleys where no humans live. While these teams of researchers are on the lookout for monsters on land, the most terrifying discoveries are happening in the abyssal plains off the Alaskan coast. This leads us into the Aleutian Trench, which is one of the deepest and least explored parts of the Pacific Ocean. Satellite footage has captured strange objects called unidentified submersible objects, diving into these freezing waters at incredible speeds. The Navy maintains a massive presence here because of the intense magnetic deviations that happen near the trench. Alaskan fishermen have even reported seeing prehistoric sharks, like the megamouth, or larger predators thought to be extinct for millions of years. During the Cold War, the Bering Sea was a place of high tension between the United States and Russia. Classified reports mention underwater caves that might have served as secret bases. Submarine crews have also reported being followed by fast movers, which are underwater objects that travel faster than any nuclear submarine known to man. Joe Rogan has discussed how these sightings match the famous Tic Tac UFOs, which seem to have a strange affinity for the water. The Alaskan Ocean is deep, but the real secrets are buried deeper under the ice of Alaska's mysterious Lost Lake. Lake Vostok's Alaskan Twin. Scientists recently discovered liquid water trapped 3,000 feet beneath the ice. This subglacial lake has been sealed off for 15 million years, creating a perfectly preserved ancient ecosystem. The biggest mystery is why this water remains liquid in such extreme cold. NASA researchers are currently using these sites as a testing ground for life on Europa, the icy moon of Jupiter. From their research, they found microbes and extremophils with DNA that does not match any known species on Earth. Some reports point out that the water is active and flowing steadily. This leads to theories that these lakes might have been used by an advanced society to protect their most important technology from the freezing surface. Also, old petroglyphs found in the Alaskan structures show rock art that should not exist. These carvings depict an Orion alignment that perfectly matches the layout of the pyramids of Giza. Local indigenous elders have long spoken of sky people who brought the knowledge of math and metallurgy to the north. Additionally, every Alaskan tribe has a story about a great flood that sounds identical to the Sumerian texts from Asia. New evidence shows that humans were active in Alaska 30,000 years ago, which completely destroys the old theory that people only arrived 13,000 years ago. Connecting the pyramids, the giants, and the star charts reveals a completely different history for the world. We are forced to rethink the idea that our ancestors were only simple hunters. Instead, we see signs of a lost, high-tech civilization that was years ahead of its time. In more ways than one, Alaska was as a bridge between two worlds. Archaeology is reaching a point where it has to delete the old records and restart. The next 50 years of work in the Arctic will likely be the most important in human history because the clock of history is being reset. The reality is that the geological data is solid, even if the theories feel fabricated. The strange energy spikes and the structures under the ice are being mapped by modern sensors. As time goes on, there are new discoveries that change everything we thought we knew about the cradle of civilization. Now that the logic has been challenged, we have to decide how to handle the truth. Which of these Alaskan mysteries do you think is the most likely to be proven true in our lifetime? Let us know in the comments. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our videos. Thanks for watching.